Close encounter in the Cottage County, Huntsville, Ontario. Whenever he could, Oscar Magowski would drive up from Toronto to a cottage lot he owned near Huntsville, Ontario. He loved camping out there and would spend many evenings lying on a ridge beside a flickering campfire, staring up at the night sky. That's what he was doing 2 days into his vacation in the summer of 1975 when he spotted the flashing orange light silently zigzagging across the star-filled sky. As a boy growing up in Hungary, Magowski had been fascinated by flying saucers. He had kept up his interest in the subject when he immigrated to Canada in 1957, and never passed up an opportunity to gaze at the stars. This wasn't the first time he had observed a UFO, unidentified flying object, but the orange orb was unlike anything he had seen in the past and appeared to be getting closer and closer. Magowski's heart began to beat faster. The night before, he had been struck by a powerful feeling that he was about to encounter something from outer space. That premonition might become a reality. The strange object was now close enough for Magowski to see that it was disc-shaped, not round. Briefly, it disappeared from view, but suddenly reappeared about 100 meters away, hovering just above the trees. Magowski stood still in the dark, watching as the orange glow began to pulse brighter. Dimmer, brighter, dimmer. The effect was hypnotic. After about 10 minutes, the large shape took on a greenish glow, rose up, glided overhead, and disappeared beyond the ridge where Magowski was camped. The urge to see where it had gone was irresistible. With the help of his flashlight, Magowski worked his way down the ridge and along an old dirt road. He found what he was searching for in a clearing off to one side. What looked like to him was a flying saucer, about 10 meters across and nearly 3 meters deep. It was hovering just above the ground. Then, slowly and silently, it landed. Excited beyond belief, but frightened too, Magowski waited several minutes before feeling brave enough to approach the mysterious craft and touch it. It felt warm. In My Space Odyssey in UFOs, a book he published 5 years after his amazing encounter, Magowski described in detail how he struggled to find the courage to step through a door-like opening that parted before him, and how he stayed inside an eerily lit chamber for some time before exiting and watching it lift off and disappear. As a believer in alien life and exploratory voyages from outer space, he was a far calmer and braver than most people would be in such a situation. But he also described being absolutely terrified at one point. In the moments after he had stepped abroad and the door slid shut behind him, Magowski concluded that the spaceship was some sort of unmanned robotic vehicle of unknown origin, a true UFO. But one can't help but think, as Magowski did, about what might have happened if that door had never slid open again. This one's called Alien Signals, and this happened in Toronto, Ontario. Even after Oscar Magowski wrote a book about his UFO experiences, most people didn't believe his story. They were even less willing to believe a Toronto area woman named Betty Stewart Donages. She claimed to have suffered through 3 harrowing abductions by aliens starting way back in 1925. In the late 1980s, she met with a Toronto-based team of UFO researchers headed by Larry Fenwick to discuss her experiences. During the meeting, she showed them a small lump behind her left ear. She believed something had been implanted there during her 3rd abduction in 1961 because, after that, she began hearing strange sounds or signals. They had faded over the years, but she figured an alien transmitter was still inside her, and she wanted it out. Fenwick agreed to help. He arranged for whatever it was to be surgically removed at York County Hospital in 1989, and was on hand with a video camera during the operation. The item was removed. It was round, nearly black, and very small, just 1 by 1 and half a milliliter. It also looked as if it had something very tiny attached in 2 places. She had passed away by the time Fenwick submitted her implant to a scientific laboratory in Mississauga near Toronto in 1995. An engineer named George Hathaway, another member of the UFO research team, analyzed it carefully using a scanning electronic microscope. He didn't figure out what it was, but his analysis showed that it contained mainly aluminum, titanium, and silicon, as well as trace amounts of calcium, potassium, sodium, sulfur, iron, and chlorine. These elements can also be found in bits of ordinary rock lying around outside, but a few of them, especially titanium and aluminum, can be used to make probes and transmitters.